Is Kamaru Usman overrated, underrated, or properly rated? Starting off with the achievements of Kamaru Usman. So Usman has a professional MMA record of 21 wins, 4 losses. His UFC record is 16-3, and that's the record that really matters the most, if we're being honest. If you took away Usman's wins and losses outside of the UFC off his resume, it would not change how we view Kamaru Usman today. He's got 9 wins by KO/TKO, 1 win by submission, 11 wins by decision. Usman at one point in time was on a 15-fight win streak inside of the UFC. He's a former UFC welterweight champion. Usman has the most consecutive title defenses in UFC history. I am not saying he has the most title defenses in welterweight history. That's GSP with 9. But Usman has the most consecutive welterweight title defenses in UFC history at 5. And Usman is also a former Ultimate Fighter winner. I'm pretty sure Usman won season 21, if I remember correctly. So he's got a really decorated career. Moving on to Usman's most notable wins, he has got a stacked resume, starting off with his most recent win, and that comes against Joaquin Buckley. Look, I thought Buckley was going to knock Kamaru Usman out in there. I thought he was going to retire Kamaru Usman in there, but that just wasn't the case. Usman showed that he still has it and still can compete with the elite guys in the welterweight division. This was a really old school Usman performance where he utilizes grappling in there and looked really good early on in this matchup. Moving on to the 2 fights against Colby Covington. First fight was one of the best fights I have ever seen in my life. Second fight, another really entertaining fight, but probably should have been scored a draw. Let's just be honest, I thought that should have been scored a draw. Then you've got the Masvidal matchups. The first fight, less said about that the better. It was dog shit. Masvidal took the fight on short notice. A lot of nothing happened in there. A lot of Usman foot stomping. But the second fight, first guy to knock out Jorge Masvidal, Kamaru Usman, that right hand was unbelievable. One of my favourite UFC knockouts of all time. Great win for Kamaru Usman. Moving on to the Gilbert Burns matchup. Look, Gilbert Burns at the time was on a crazy run. He actually hurt Usman with a big right hand early on in that fight, but Usman stayed composed in there. Just showed, like, Usman isn't a great striker in my opinion, but he's got probably one of the best 1-2s in UFC history, in my opinion. He dropped Gilbert Burns with a jab. He beat the living piss out of Gilbert Burns after Gilbert Burns nearly dropped him. Then you've got the Tyron Woodley performance. That there's one of the best championship performances in UFC history, in my opinion. He absolutely dominated Tyron Woodley in there. I think he ended up with like the most control time in a UFC fight, if I remember correctly. But he dominated Woodley in there. And Woodley at the time was on track to becoming one of the best welterweights of all time. That's how people forget how good Tyron Woodley was because of the Jake Paul knockout. Woodley was a serious serious champion. This guy was one of the best welterweights of all time when Usman fought him, and Usman dominated him. You've got the win over RDA, good win, good name value, but RDA done his best work in the lightweight division. Sean Strickland, this was really early on in Strickland's career, and obviously Strickland, he's done his best work at middleweight, but still a good name to have on your resume. You've got the Leon Edwards win. That was good again, very early on in both guys' career. And you've also got former title challenger in Damian Maia. Usman's got a really stacked resume, in my opinion. Just off the top of my head, he's beaten 1, 2, 3, 4. He's beaten 4 former UFC world champions. Now let's talk about Usman's most notable losses. Let's start off with his most recent one against Khamzat Chimaev. That fight should have been scored a draw, in my opinion. That there was the most lenient 10-8 round I can remember off the top of my head. If that was anywhere outside of Abu Dhabi or the Middle East, that would not have been a 10-8 round. And Usman came on really well in the second and third round. And Usman took this fight on short notice, up a weight class. Khamzat Chimaev right now is probably one of the most dominant fighters right now in the UFC. This is definitely not a bad loss to have on your resume. Then you've got the 2 Leon Edwards losses. Let's start off with the head kick KO. Usman was winning that matchup, let's just be honest. I'm not going to say that was a fluke KO from Leon Edwards because he was drilling it in the build-up and his corner were calling for it. But Usman was quite comfortably beating up Leon in their rematch. Moving on to the trilogy though, Leon did improve from there. I was there live for that event. I actually thought Usman won it watching it live. But when I go back and rewatch the fight, Leon did deserve to win that matchup. And these aren't bad losses that Usman has on his career. Losing to Leon twice, he's a former champion with multiple title defenses in the welterweight division. And Khamzat Chimaev is probably going to be a future middleweight champion. I think he's going to beat DDP. So these are not bad losses to have at all. Now we answer the question, is Kamaru Usman overrated, underrated, or properly rated? A lot of people aren't going to agree with me on this one, but Usman is overrated. And I'll tell you why. The title reign. Usman's title reign is so overrated. Yes, I know he got 5 title defenses. Colby the second time didn't deserve to fight for the title. In my opinion, I don't think he had done enough to warrant another title fight. Masvidal never deserved to fight for the title. Not once. Masvidal never worked his way into a position where he should have been fighting for the title. Now, I understand the first time he took the fight on short notice. Masvidal was a big name. He was coming off that BMF title win. Yeah, he was, whenever he fought Usman for the first time. But Masvidal was never a title contender, in my opinion. Masvidal lost to Usman, then went right back into a title fight against Kamaru Usman. He never deserved any of those shots at all against Kamaru Usman. Now, outside of his title reign, there's really good wins there. Obviously, his win against Tyron Woodley, one of the best title performances in UFC history. The name value on his resume is there, but the title reign was just so overrated, in my opinion. And this doesn't matter for him being overrated, underrated, or properly rated. But when people say we miss the Usman era, Usman was one of the most boring fighters ever at one point. Nobody was screaming for Usman to stay champion. Let's just call it what it was. Now, that has nothing to do with him being overrated, underrated, or properly rated. But when I see people constantly say that, I just don't get it. Now, Usman is still active, so he can turn this around. If Usman beats Bilal Muhammad and becomes champion again, he is most certainly top 10 all time. If Usman just wins the belt again, he is most certainly top 10 of all time. But as of right now, if Usman was to retire today, he is overrated, in my opinion. Let me know your opinions in the comments below. What fighter do you want me to cover next? And as always, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And I'll see you all again in the next one.